Last fall, one of the most successful American artists, Eminem, turned 52 years old. For hip-hop fans, this number should be surprising. It seems like not so long ago the artist had just entered the prime of his career. Everyone still remembers and sings along to Lose Yourself, and they also rewatched the movie 8 Mile. But in reality, all of that happened a very, very long time ago. Nevertheless, Eminem is still probably the most popular rapper in the world, and despite his age, he continues to release hit after hit. For almost half of his life, Marshall Mathers has remained the most famous white rap artist on the planet. And not too long ago, in the context of his entire career, in March 2022, he set a record for the number of gold and platinum singles. He also became one of only 7 musicians in history whose albums have been certified diamond 3 times or more. Success was preceded by a difficult path. Today, we will talk about that. How did Eminem reach such heights, starting from the very bottom? Let's try to figure it out. Let's go. Anyone who has only listened to Eminem's most famous songs must know that Marshall Bruce Mathers had a tough childhood. No biography has recounted Eminem's past in more detail and with more emotion than his songs. His discography contains vivid and detailed descriptions of many painful episodes from his youth. Marshall Bruce Mathers comes from a family with a long history of abuse. His grandmother suffered from the tyranny of her mother and passed it down as a legacy. Marshall's father left the family when he was an infant. He was raised by his mother, Deborah, who gave birth to him at the age of 18. Eminem, by the way, almost never had warm feelings for his mother. Deborah and Marshall moved back and forth between St. Joseph and Detroit at least 20 times. Mathers changed schools every 2 to 3 months and therefore could not make any permanent friends. Eventually, the family settled in Detroit. At that time, the city was still recovering from large-scale racial riots and unrest, and Deborah could only afford to find housing in poor areas bordering the ghettos. So, in the schools where Eminem studied, he was one of the few white kids. While in school, he met Deshaun Holton, who later became known as the rapper Proof. They bonded over their shared passion for hip-hop, and Holton became Eminem's loyal creative ally for many years. Until then, Mathers' only close friend had been his uncle of the same age, Ronnie, who later committed suicide at the age of 19. As a constant newcomer in schools, Marshall often became a victim of bullying and harassment. One such bully once beat Mathers unconscious, leaving him lying in a pool of blood in the school bathroom. After the attack, the child spent 10 days in a coma, followed by a long recovery. Eminem later detailed this beating in the song Brain Damage. The rapper believes that bullying toughened him up and triggered the aggression he later expressed in his music. At the age of 15, Marshall met Kim Scott. She was only 13 at the time. The boy brought the girl home to his mother and persuaded her to take Kim in. According to Deborah, she took Kim into the family without suspecting that her son had a romantic relationship with her. When this was revealed, Deborah kicked the girl out of the house and Marshall left with her. Around the same time, Mathers dropped out of school. The couple lived in poverty, frequently arguing, breaking up, but always getting back together. In 1995, Marshall and Kim had a daughter, Haley. Eminem tried to keep his family afloat by working as a dishwasher and cook at a restaurant while simultaneously recording songs and participating in Detroit rap battles.
Differently, you ain't got no style, especially like delivery. Not to brag, I don't mean to boast. Look, my face is pale, but you look like you seen a ghost.
Despite relative success in verbal battles, he struggled to gain a steady audience. His music simply wasn't taking off. His debut album, Infinite, released in 1996, did not create any hype among either white or black audiences. Everyone found it strange that a skinny white boy was trying to do hip-hop. The album's unpopularity devastated Mathers. He began abusing substances, lost his job, and eventually attempted suicide by overdosing on powerful drugs. He and his family had to move into his mother's trailer. By the way, here's how the musician himself describes his journey.
Eventually, we settled in Detroit. We lived in a tough neighborhood, one of the only white families on the block. To survive, I worked whatever jobs I could. Pizza shops, dishwashing, anything to pay the bills. I met Dr. Dre. That moment changed everything.
As Eminem recalls in his autobiography, The Way I Am, it was his childhood friend Proof who helped him get out of this state. At the time, the rapper decided to create a hip-hop group similar to Wu-Tang Clan. He dreamed of assembling a collective of 12 artists to be called Dirty Dozen. Only 6 people joined, but Proof came up with a workaround. He suggested that each member create an additional alter ego along with their existing stage names. This is how the group D12 was born, although it did not last very long, and Eminem created a character that played a crucial role in his career. Skipping ahead, on April 11, 2006, Eminem's best friend and D12 member Proof was shot 4 times in the head and chest by a security guard named Mario at the Triple C Club on 8 Mile Road in Detroit after Proof shot Mario's cousin, Keith Bender. On April 19, 2006, Proof's funeral was held at the Fellowship Chapel in Detroit, attended by Eminem, 50 Cent, and many others. Eminem wrote 2 songs about Proof's death, Going Through Changes and You're Never Over, which were included in the Recovery album. He has also commented on this tragic event multiple times.
Great guy told you great things about this, and then the whole perspective of your confidence go to another level.
Proof. That's how Proof was to me. Yeah, man, he was a godsend to me because I know that I would not have made it without knowing him, because he gave me, he co-signed for me when I went to the shop, when I went to Ebony show, because he co-signed for me everywhere I went, and people respected him. His name meant something because they respected him, because he was the crazy.
But let's get back to Eminem's story. Considering that the future legend had nothing left to lose, he took a desperate step, completely changing his music style, diving into pure provocation. He chose a new alter ego, Slim Shady, a character who, without any censorship, talked in his tracks about substances, violence, murders, or just complete nonsense. Under this pseudonym, in December 1997, he released the Slim Shady EP. The EP didn't become a massive hit either, but it did the most important thing. It caught the attention of producers. More precisely, one producer, Jimmy Iovine, the founder of Interscope Records. At the time, the label was actively looking for hardcore hip-hop and was working closely with Dr. Dre, so Iovine handed Eminem's recordings over to him. Dre invited the white rapper to his studio, played him a beat he was working on, and Mathers immediately started freestyling. This is how, in just 1 hour in the studio, his first hit, My Name Is, was created.
Trying to get my head straight, but I can't figure out which Spice Girl I want to impregnate. And Dr. Dre.
The song was packed with brutal mockery of pop culture figures. Among others, it mentioned the bands 9 Inch Nails and Spice Girls, Pamela Anderson, Usher, and the duo Criss Cross. Eminem also managed to include a ton of insults directed at his own mother in the same track, as well as outrageous lines like, "I showed my privates to the bartender, then stuck them in the tip cup." According to the rapper himself, the aggression and attacks in his songs were genuine, but looking back, he can't even explain why he was so angry. "I was always really aggressive, partly because people treated me like trailer park trash. I followed the public's lead, thinking that I really did represent this group of people. I really was poor white trash. If they called me that, I had to use it to the fullest," he said. On the other hand, Eminem always insisted that he knew exactly what to write and when.
I don't think I'm stupid. I'm not stupid. Like I know when a song has a certain particular sound and sounds like, well, maybe this could possibly be a radio record, or when I'm going, fuck shit ass, you know what I'm saying? And I know this will never go to radio. But at the same time, if a song starts heading that way, because a lot of times I may even think certain things when I'm writing it, like maybe what person this might connect with. You know what I'm saying? Like, and who I might connect with this song, but I never, in making any song I've ever made, I never wanted to compromise lyrical integrity.
Because of homophobic remarks, Eminem had a conflict with Labi Siffre, whose song was sampled in the chorus. Siffre, being openly gay, protested against lyrics about the lyrical character being assaulted by his English teacher. It's worth noting that Eminem and Dre tried to come up with a different beat for the track, but in the end the rapper gave in and slightly changed the lyrics. Interestingly, according to Mathers, all the profits from his first hit went to Siffre. Mathers didn't earn a single dollar from the song. On the very first day of working together, Mathers and Dre not only recorded a demo of My Name Is, but also sketched out a couple more tracks. Recording the album, the Slim Shady LP, happened quickly. Dre would play Mathers a beat and he would either freestyle over it or match it with pre-written lyrics. "I had rhymes ready for every beat he had," Mathers recalled. Dre also appeared on the album, rapping alongside Eminem on Guilty Conscience, where the rappers played out a dialogue between a devil and a guardian angel. The first, voiced by Slim Shady, encouraged the song's characters to rob stores and commit assaults, while the second tried to stop them, except when it came to a cheating wife, where both agreed she should be killed.
Now before you walk in the door to liquor store and try to get money out the drawer, you
And here's Dr. Dre himself explaining why he considers Eminem the greatest rapper of all time.
That's the first thing that happened. Hi, my name is. I put the beat on and he just did that right away.
No.
And
so hang on, he goes in a studio, you go.
No,
oh,
we're in the studio and I hit play on it. Doom doom, doom doom, and he just fast, no bull. And then we went from there, and that was the beginning of this relationship. And I think he's the best MC ever.
I mean,
Point blank, period. Of course, there are going to be arguments about that because he's a white guy. You know, I don't think anyone that's rapping can touch Eminem on that microphone.
When the album was nearly finished, Dre told Mathers that he should find a standout look for himself. According to Eminem, he doesn't remember exactly how he came up with the idea to bleach his hair. He claims he was walking around under the influence of substances, nearly unconscious, when he wandered into a store, bought hydrogen peroxide, and woke up the next morning in a new image. He showed up at the studio wearing baggy pants and an oversized white t-shirt. When Dre saw him, he declared that the artist had found his style. Once the album was completed, the artist had disputes with label managers over certain lyrics in Role Model and My Name Is. At Interscope, they were unsure whether they really needed someone so provocative. Dre and I went to a meeting with management. It's reenacted in the music video for The Way I Am, where I sit down in front of a bunch of people and then start throwing papers and everything around. In reality, it wasn't that dramatic, but I was trying to defend myself, Eminem recalled. The Slim Shady LP was released in February 1999 and became one of the year's most popular albums. In its first week of sales, it reached second place on the Billboard 200 chart, losing only to Fan Mail. The album stayed on the charts for almost 2 years, and by April, it had gone platinum, selling over 1 million copies. Homophobic jokes and glorification of explicit violence, delivered with a light-hearted comedic tone, served as Eminem's gateway from the underground into mainstream culture. In less than a year, the artist became a national star. It's almost the same as what happens today with TikTok stars who become world famous in a matter of months. In the late 1990s, this was hard to imagine, but Eminem managed to do the impossible once again. In June 1999, Eminem and Kim got married. This happened just before the rapper's first major tour. The newly famous artist's wife said that fame changed him drastically. His ego inflated to an unbelievable size. He acted like he was a god. He told me I should be grateful that he even talked to me, since all the women around him were ready to throw themselves at him. Most of the time, I felt like a piece of shit. At the end of the decade, Mathers launched his own label, Shady Records, signing his friends from D12. However, his next album, the Marshall Mathers LP, was still released on Interscope. It dropped in May 2000 and instantly shattered every possible chart record. Despite all the buzz surrounding the Slim Shady LP, Eminem only truly reached peak popularity with the Marshall Mathers LP.
Instincts to kill instinct, don't get me started. These fucking brats can't sing and Britney's garbage.
The new project was filled with the familiar glorification of violence, attacks on gay people, insults toward women, and jabs at various celebrities. But paradoxically, this outrageous nonsense that Eminem rapped about on the album was actually a response to the already established belief in the US that rap music was to blame for the rise in violence and other societal issues. Seeing how absurd such accusations were, Eminem aggressively pushed the boundaries. Violence, even sexual, including references to his own mother in the song Kill You, was exaggerated to the point of absurdity, making it seem ridiculous and almost comedic. Moreover, this album revealed much more of Eminem's personal struggles, his overwhelming fame, obsessive fan love, attempts by major labels to censor his work, and his consuming jealousy. In the song named after his wife, Eminem vividly described how he killed his spouse, whom he suspected of cheating. This severely impacted Kim's mental health, leading her to attempt suicide after one of his concerts where he performed the song. After that, the couple divorced.
Don't make me wake this baby. She don't need to see what I'm about to do. Quit crying, bitch.
Here's a chilling news report covering these events.
My wife Kim is here, and I mean the crowd was like, oh yeah. You know, and then he comes out with the blow-up doll, and it went from, claps to ahs and explosions.
On July 7th of 2000, the Up in Smoke tour rolled into M's hometown of Detroit. Kim Mathers attended the show. She went home and slit her wrists.
What does she have in her hand? Razor blade. She's got a razor blade in her hand. She's letting me use her again.
The success of the Marshall Mathers LP was overwhelming, even compared to the Slim Shady LP. The album debuted at the top of the Billboard 200 chart, where it remained for 8 consecutive weeks. In just 1 week, it sold over 1.7 million copies, becoming one of the best-seller releases in the United States, and later, worldwide. Rolling Stone magazine named it Album of the Year, and it won several Grammy Awards. Eminem became an international star.
I'ma name her Bonnie. I read about your Uncle Ronnie too, I'm sorry.
Riding the wave of popularity, Eminem made his acting debut in the musical drama 8 Mile, which was partially based on his life. Marshall also composed music for the film, and the track Lose Yourself, written for it, won an Academy Award, making Mathers the first hip-hop artist to receive an Oscar.
Woo! The Oscar goes to Eminem, Jeff Bass, and Luis Resto for Lose Yourself from 8 Mile.
This
This is the first Academy Award and first nomination for Eminem, Jeff Bass, and Luis Resto.
As you can see, the musician wasn't able to accept his Oscar in person. However, he finally got to perform at the ceremony 17 years later in 2020. I thought, since I didn't get to show up the first time, this would be cool. Back then, I didn't even think I had a chance to win, and we had just performed Lose Yourself at the Grammys a couple of weeks before the Oscars, so we didn't think it was a good idea. Also, when I was younger, I didn't really feel like those kinds of shows understood me, but later when I found out I had won, I thought, that's crazy. It shows how real and authentic this award is. When you don't even show up, and you still win, Eminem later said in an interview with Variety.
Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs.
The track Lose Yourself didn't just become extremely popular, it also spawned numerous memes and jokes. One of them went a little too far. In 2021, a diner called Mum's Spaghetti opened in Detroit. Its name references a line from Lose Yourself, where the protagonist gets so nervous before going on stage that he vomits, leaving remnants of his mum's spaghetti on his clothes. By the way, 3 years later, the rapper's mother would pass away at the age of 69 due to complications from lung cancer. Eminem's relationship with his mother was like a roller coaster. At the beginning of his rap career, Marshall Mathers dedicated many shocking punchlines to her, accusing her of neglect and cruelty. Eminem rapped about how his mother gave him sedatives as a child to keep him quiet and stop him from crying. In the music video for Cleaning Out My Closet, one of the biggest hits of his career, he metaphorically buried his mother in the ground.
I said, I'm sorry, Mama. I never meant to hurt you.
In 1999, Debbie sued her son for defamation, and in 2007 she wrote a memoir titled My Son Marshall, My Son Eminem. Years later, they reconciled, and Eminem reflected this in his music. In the video for Headlights, he apologized to her. In the video, they embrace.
Every address, but I'd have flipped every mattress, every rock and desert cactus on a collect.
In 2003, Eminem got involved in one of the longest but ultimately successful feuds of his career. The Source magazine, co-owned by rapper Benzino, gave the Marshall Mathers LP a rating of 2 microphones out of 5 that year. This sparked Eminem's longest beef, which included several diss tracks from both sides. Benzino's most notable diss track was Pull Your Skirt Up, where he called Marshall a 2003 version of Vanilla Ice, and claimed that he had launched Eminem's career in 1998 with an article in The Source about undiscovered talent.
Chin check your Snoopy, put a circle on that eye. My time's never up, 'cause real
Later, Benzino went as far as threatening Eminem's daughter Hailey and dug up a demo called Foolish Pride, where a 15-year-old Eminem rapped offensive lines about black women. The Source even dedicated an entire issue to this song. After a few diss tracks, Eminem dropped Nail in the Coffin, a diss that sent Benzino's rap career into a downward spiral. Marshall called out his age, lack of hits, and fake gangster persona.
Nobody wants to hear their grandfather rap. Nope. You know men have heart attacks.
In the end, Eminem apologized for Foolish Pride and explained that he had recorded the song out of anger after breaking up with a black girlfriend. He was forgiven. Benzino, however, was not so lucky. Not only did he fail to recover from Nail in the Coffin, but he was also forced to leave The Source in 2005. He tried to make a comeback in rap but was unsuccessful. Now he's mostly remembered in the comment sections of new Eminem diss tracks. But let's get back to Eminem's journey. 2 years later, Eminem released Encore, an album that followed a similar formula to his previous releases, where deep personal revelations stood alongside provocative jokes. The album sold well, though it didn't reach the same heights as The Eminem Show or the Marshall Mathers LP. Notably, Encore was the first time Eminem rapped about politics. In the track Mosh, he openly criticized then-President George Bush. Eminem's political statements would later reach their peak when he released a full diss track against Donald Trump 7 years ago.
Better give Obama props, cause what we got in office now's a kamikaze that'll...
One of our videos on this channel is dedicated to Lil Wayne. We talked about how this artist introduced the world to Drake and Nicki Minaj. Eminem and Lil Wayne have a lot in common, and we're not just talking about their collaborations, but also their impact on hip-hop. Eminem, like Lil Wayne, introduced another important figure to the world, 50 Cent. In 2003, Eminem offered 50 Cent a record deal, a $1 million advance, and a bright future. 50 Cent became the first solo artist signed to Shady Records and one of the most successful rappers in history. At the beginning of the 2000s, 50 Cent was at the lowest point in his career. He had been shot 9 times, dropped by his label, and forced to move to Canada. The mixtape Guess Who's Back, which he released independently there, caught Eminem's attention. With Dr. Dre's support, Marshall invited 50 Cent into the Shady family. 50 Cent's first release, Get Rich or Die Tryin' on Shady Records, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart, selling 872,000 copies in just 4 days after its release.
I've been patiently waiting for a track to explode on you. You stun if you want in your...
50 Cent left Shady Records in 2014, but his friendship with Marshall remains strong. 50 Cent always takes Marshall's side in any situation.
Why didn't they pay Eminem?
Because he's white.
Hip-hop is black music, without question. Unfortunately, for some people, it's tough to accept that you got a white artist that does it better than black artists. It is what it is.
When they would look and go, oh, why he sold more records than the rest of, oh, because he's white.
You know, and you could put either one, you could get whoever you feel like is the best black artist and stand them face to face in a room with them, and he will eat that alive.
He's the bridge culturally for hip-hop culture to lose its color, for everybody to feel like they want to participate and be a part of it. No Eminem, no Rolls Royces and Ferraris for these that you see.
When Encore was released in 2004, many critics and fans agreed Eminem had lost his creative spark. The scandalous, aggressive, and witty Slim Shady seemed to have dissolved into parody-like and careless tracks. No one knew what would happen next. However, the following years proved that Eminem's story was far from over. His subsequent albums took listeners on a journey through addiction, personal tragedies, a return to the top, and attempts to rethink his place in the industry. The first step on this path was Relapse. Released in 2009, after a long hiatus due to addiction and the death of his best friend Proof, Eminem returned with a conceptual horrorcore-style album. Despite its technical perfection and outstanding rhyme skills, the project received mixed reactions from listeners. The exaggerated accent and excessive violence in the lyrics made Relapse seem more like a caricature of the old Slim Shady, rather than a logical continuation of his past work.
Fantastic, it's a grand. Well, look at all the massive masses in the stands. Shady man, no, don't massacre the...
A year later, Recovery was released, which was strikingly different from anything Eminem had done before. For the first time, he completely abandoned the Slim Shady persona, focusing on personal experiences and sincerity. The album was a huge commercial success. The tracks Not Afraid and Love the Way You Lie sold millions of copies. However, for old school fans, it was a disappointment. The sound was too pop-oriented, and technical experiments gave way to simplicity and emotional depth.
Take a stand, everybody.
In 2013, Eminem decided to play on nostalgia and released the Marshall Mathers LP2, a sequel to his most iconic album. The project was quite controversial. On one hand, it was an impressive technical showcase featuring incredible flows and lyrical tricks, just listen to Rap God, but on the other hand, it lacked the dark depth of the original album. Nonetheless, it proved that Eminem could still surprise audiences. Then came Revival in 2017. Arguably the rapper's most divisive release. His attempt to dive into political themes, collaborations with Beyoncé and Ed Sheeran, and a softer sound all sparked a wave of criticism. Many listeners found the album too boring, filled with mediocre beats and an overwhelming sense of seriousness.
Sack the binge and get back. It's a chess match. She's on his back like a jetpack.
That's why, just a year later, Eminem released Kamikaze without any prior announcement, returning to aggression and a battle-ready mindset, taking shots at critics and the industry. The album was recorded in response to Revival's failure and became successful precisely because of its directness and boldness.
I've been eating long enough, man, my stomach should be full. I just ate, lick the plate.
By 2018, people seem to have forgotten how Eminem started his career. We're talking about battle rap, the culture of beefs and diss tracks. Many of Eminem's disses have ended his opponents' careers. We've already told you about Benzino, who lost everything because of his conflict with Marshall. But Eminem also had beefs with Ja Rule, Cannabis, Cage, and many others. But the biggest conflict of the last decade was undoubtedly between Eminem and Machine Gun Kelly. It all started 13 years ago in 2012 when Machine Gun Kelly tweeted that Eminem's daughter was, quote, hot. It was clearly baiting for a reaction from Marshall, considering that his daughter Haley was only 16 at the time. Eminem did not respond at the time, and Machine Gun Kelly kept mentioning Marshall in interviews. In one of them, he claimed that Eminem had banned his music from being played on his radio station, Shade 45. Essentially, Machine Gun Kelly was doing everything possible to get Eminem's attention, and he succeeded. In 2018, 6 years later, Eminem openly dissed him in the track Not Alike.
That's how much we have in common. Yeah, that's how much we have in common. Up on this mic.
And that's when things really escalated. Not only was Machine Gun Kelly openly celebrating the fact that Eminem mentioned him in a track, but he also prepared to engage in a battle he could not possibly win. He released a diss track against Eminem called Rap Devil. The name was an obvious reference to Marshall's hit Rap God, implying that Machine Gun Kelly was the opposite, not the rap god, but the rap devil.
Tough talk from a rapper paying millions for security a year. I think my dad's gone crazy.
It became the biggest hip-hop news of the year. The video now has nearly 400 million views, an insane number for Machine Gun Kelly. Clearly, the beef was working in his favor, but this was just the beginning. The climax was yet to come. It arrived when Eminem, after a high-profile interview, dropped his response, diss track Kill Shot.
Isn't mad, but how you gonna name yourself after a damn gun and have a man?
We won't even mention that Killshot has 100 million more views than Rap Devil. Just listen to the quality of the dismants. Eminem is infinitely more technical, aggressive, and ruthless, making his track an undeniable classic. After this attack, Machine Gun Kelly suffered such a reputational blow that he didn't know how to respond. In a 2018 interview, he stated that he had no interest in continuing the beef. That sounded disingenuous. How could anyone respond to Killshot without humiliating themselves further? Yet, it seems Machine Gun Kelly followed a pre-planned strategy. Riding the wave of hype, he released a mini album called Binge. It completely flopped, his first major failure.
I ain't taking calls, I've been going through shit. I don't speak it on.
In the 7 days following its release, Binge sold a total of 21,500 copies. This is despite the fact that the tracklist included the diss track Rap Devil, whose music video had already surpassed 100 million views at the time. Later, Machine Gun Kelly would blame Eminem for the failure of this and his next project. But Marshall's own comment on the situation looks like this.
The reason that I dissed him is because he got on, you think I actually fucking think about you? You know how many fucking rappers that are better than you?
In 2020, Eminem released a new album, Music to be Murdered By, which once again raised questions about the direction of Eminem's career. The album felt like an experimental compilation. It featured both extremely strong tracks and completely forgettable songs. It lacked a clear concept, and Eminem's attempts to fit into modern rap sounded artificial. Nevertheless, it still contained some hits.
Like a play date, better vacate, retreat like a vacate, mayday. This beat is cray cray, Ray J, H.
And finally, last summer, Eminem released his 12th album, The Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace, in which he bids farewell to his dark alter ego Slim Shady. Eminem calls it a conceptual album and urges listeners to play the songs in order. According to the storyline of The Death of Slim Shady, Shady kidnaps Eminem to record a sabotage album that will inevitably lead to Marshall's cancellation. The album features collaborations with Big Sean, Babytron, Skylar Grey, White Gold, Bizarre, and Sly Piper. The executive producer is Dr. Dre. Music videos were released for the tracks Houdini and Toby. Leading up to the album's release, fans were shown both a fake obituary for Slim Shady and a trailer shot in the style of a true crime documentary. The character of Slim Shady was introduced to the world in 1997. Eminem released Slim Shady EP, which 2 years later evolved into the rapper's full-length debut album under the Aftermath label. In 1999, Eminem became a global superstar, shocking audiences and pushing boundaries. He released the super hit My Name Is and further explored his dark alter ego in his songs. Eminem and Slim Shady would feud for years within the universe of Marshall Mathers music. For example, in the track My Darling, Eminem attempts suicide thinking that it will rid him of Slim Shady, but the duo remains inseparable. The song's conclusions suggest that Slim Shady cannot be killed, that without him, there is no Eminem, and this instantly became one of the dominant fan theories surrounding the release. Does this mean that the album will be the last, not only for Slim Shady, but for Marshall Mathers himself?
Explain it to children, so a lot of this pain is appealing. You're escaping at this angle, spilling, almost like recreate.
And that's all for now. What do you think about Eminem's life and career? Write your thoughts in the comments, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you all later.